Hey everyone, my name is Shetty. You're watching HuffPost Rise. Thank you so much for joining us for probably what's one of the most important discussions, important lives that we'll actually have this year and for some time. And we're discussing this really interesting issue. I've been listening to people walking on the way to work. We've turned up at the studio, turned up in the office. I've seen messages on social media. There's so much confusion. There's a lot of thoughts being shared. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of anxiety in the air. And I was posting this morning and I thought this is really important that we talk about this big question of how do we respond positively? How can we actually respond? What's a spiritual response to what we've witnessed, whichever side you're on, wherever you are? How do we respond in a way that we can move forward most effectively, most positively? And also I've heard a lot of news and media talk about how the markets have been affected. I've heard them talk about how policies are being affected. I've heard them talk about global trends. But what I want to talk about today is you. I want to talk about us. I want to talk about how we feel and how you feel and how your family feels. So I'm really blessed and very grateful today because for this discussion, I'm joined by Gabby Bernstein. Many of you know Gabby. She's been on the show before. She's a New York Times bestselling author and a motivational speaker. And more than that, she's a great friend and someone that I truly believes whose perspective will be really valuable today. And Gabby, I saw your video this morning, but maybe you can just share with the viewers today what you were speaking about, this spiritual response.
Well, first of all, thank you for asking me to come on today. It was a hell yes for you this morning. And yeah, we have to find solutions, creative solutions, spiritual solutions. I definitely woke up and I did not have a spiritual response, Jay. I woke up with a very sad, scared, rageful, fearful reaction to this. Lots of tears and discomfort. But very quickly, I knew that that wasn't where we could stay. I often, in one of my books, I share that we can't be the victim, we have to be the lighthouse. And particularly in times like this when we feel powerless, politics is a place where we really, really do feel quite powerless. Even with our vote, we feel powerless often because half of the country doesn't want what the other half wants. And so there's going to be a side that is going to feel like the victim. And so those of us who did not get the results that we want, we have to have some solutions and some better practices for showing up. I want to begin by just saying that we should all take a cue from our friend Van Jones. I thought that he, last night, sitting next to the Republican pundits that he had been fighting with for months, and he looked at them and said, "Congratulations." And they even said, we're not done yet. You don't have to congratulate us. And he said, I'm a man of class, and I just want to honor that you've come this far. Congratulations. And I just thought that was really beautiful. And I think that we have to start there because if those of us who were with her show up right now and start raging and start judging and start bringing more negativity to the table, then we're doing exactly what we were fighting against. And so it's our responsibility first and foremost to act with grace, which is what your goal is today.
Unbelievable. I think there's two really, really important things you've just said there. The first one was that you said when you woke up, you didn't have a spiritual response.
No.
And I love that you've opened up and said that because I think there's a lot of pressure on a lot of supporters who maybe didn't get the result they wanted to behave a certain way, to respond a certain way, to almost all of a sudden be out there being positive activists again. Mm-hmm. But I think how much of it is, first of all, just in allowing ourselves to feel that pain? What would you suggest? What are your recommendations?
This is a loss, right? This is a really big loss. This is a loss for women, for Muslims, for immigrants. This is a loss for anyone who was on the path for Hillary, and it's also a big loss for those of us who speak up as a woman, for those of us who had this vision of now I was thinking about it this morning. My mother and my mother-in-law, they may never see a female president. They may. We said this earlier. They may in 4 years. We never know, but they may not. And just sort of honoring what that means for women, what it means for women's rights, what it means for the safety of our country. And so this is a loss. Not just it's a different type of loss than I think the typical election when our party didn't get elected. This is a loss of security, I think. I think that a lot of people are walking around feeling like, whoa, I felt safe yesterday with that sweet guy Barack in my office, but today I don't really feel that safety. And so let's get real about that loss. Like let's not just like throw some affirmations over that. Let's get real about the discomfort. Let's mourn this as a loss. Let's honor the wounds of this election. As a woman, I have been wounded. I have been wounded by the words and the allegations. And as a woman who is a survivor of sexual violence, I was wounded, deeply wounded. To see a man who I know has violated women, I feel wounded. So let's honor that. Because if I just bulldoze over that, then that won't be healthy for any of us, right? Yeah. So let's give ourselves the rageful moments, but let's not take our rage to internet. Let's not take our rage. Let's honor our rage. Let's honor our experiences. Let's speak up from where we come from. But let's make a point not to bring the rage towards those individuals who did make this choice, because they have their own rage. They have their own feelings of division, and they have their own feelings of not being heard or listened to or supported. And he represented their wound. And so honor their wound, right? So this isn't about, this is holding accountable the man that we've elected, but not necessarily those who elected him. And I think that's the heartful place I actually can get to today, is that I'm not in a place of judgment and division towards the Trump supporters, though this is the decision that they made and I don't agree with it. I have compassion for them too. I'm still working on having compassion for Donald Trump though.
Definitely. I think there's some really practical advice here, guys. And like Gabby rightly said, we're not here to brush over the topics. We're not here to layer some affirmations and expect everyone to move on. I've really been thinking about this, Gabby, from what you're saying now. And the second point I was talking about was you talking about the graciousness in which the loss is accepted. Still understanding how we feel, but how can we get to that point where we're still able to accept that and do what you were mentioning?
So something came through me this morning, and sometimes, I get some downloads. I don't know where they come from, but something came through on my Facebook Live this morning where I said, if you don't like your leader, learn to be led by a power greater than you, a power of your own understanding, a higher power of your own understanding. And through that relationship, you will receive guidance and direction beyond what you logically think you need. And so that means establishing a spiritual connection of your own understanding, whether that be through prayer or through meditation or through watching your show or leaning into kindness and compassion, but opening up to being led by the voice of your own higher self. So if you don't like your leader, learn to be led by the voice of your own higher self. And that I say that from the perspective of okay, so we don't like the way that he's leading already, just in the ways that he's shown up, the messages he stood for. We don't like that type of leadership at this point. Maybe that's something that you feel violently against. So don't act as he would, right? Don't meet rage with rage. Don't meet judgment with judgment. Don't meet attack with attack. Bring forth the place of your highest self. So right now, in the place of my highest self, I honor this discomfort. And I also was able to get to a place of compassion for those voters and understand their wounds and understand where they're coming. So that's where I'm at today. And maybe tomorrow I'll be feeling a little bit lighter. Another silver lining I've found here too, Jay, is that I'm seeing so many text messages and tweets and posts come in from people saying, wow, do I feel I need to rise up? Wow, does my voice need to be heard? Now more than ever. I'm writing a new book that I just started writing last week called The Judgment Detox. I mean, how freaking timely is that? And my new publisher is just devastated by these reactions. And I was texting with her last night and I said, listen, this book is going to have a greater meaning now than more than ever. So in our own worlds, for me, it's how can I help dissolve the boundaries of judgment through this context of this new book or this message today. For you, how can you bring forth even more of what you believe through this platform? Because this is a fire under your ass to show up more. And then we ask you all, what can you do to speak up more fully and completely, to own the belief systems that you have, to support your local Planned Parenthood or NARAL America or whatever it is that you get behind if there's a threat to your cause. So really just sitting in contemplation of how can I rise up more?
Yeah.
Hopefully this will really spike and spawn more individual leadership.
Completely. I couldn't agree with you more. I was speaking to a bunch of my friends, YouTubers from around the world, and we were collectively looking at, the amount of following and impact you have and saying, are we really using our platforms for good?
Yeah.
Are we really using our platforms to positively spread a message? Are we showing up? Like you rightly said in your video this morning as well. If you haven't seen it, I recommend looking at Gabby's Facebook where you did your video and you're talking about showing up. And I think that if you're not ready to show up straight away, that's totally fine. But it is a call to action for all of us to say, let's not be so reactive. We almost are waiting for something like this to happen to force us.
Oh, unfortunately, that is the case. I mean, usually it's the diagnosis that puts people on their path, or this is a worldwide diagnosis.
Yes.
And it is a wake-up call for the world. And so what are we going to do with that is the question now. And I said, earlier today, I also posted something about how this is a call for acceptance and a call for action. So acceptance, I want to share, is the prayer that I love, which I shared earlier today. It's the Serenity Prayer. And this is a prayer that gets many people sober, and it keeps them on a sober path. It's a prayer that gets people out of very horrific situations. It's a prayer that helps people through situations when they feel powerless. And it's, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so we can post that below, but post that Serenity Prayer, whether you believe in God, call it universe, call it spirit, or just say whoever is out there, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can. And the courage to change the things I can is what we really need to be looking at. Where is the courage? I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, right now that are speaking up in very Brexit style, speaking up, but they were afraid to prior to the election. Didn't want to get backlash, didn't want to hear from the haters, and now they're just like, oh no, So let's cultivate the courage to say what we believe and to own our voice today.
I was looking at how people feel this morning and thinking about how I felt this morning, and I was thinking that there's so many people expressing their fear online in a really open way, which naturally, when we see fear, it's contagious and it incites fear in us, even if we haven't connected with why that person feels that way.
Yeah.
So have you had any thoughts?
This is sort of the reaction that we have, and this is the power we do have in a powerless situation, is that what the energy that we exude creates a force field. It's a quantum field, and the more people that cultivate fear and feed that fear, the more fear will spread. So that's the responsibility that we have right now, is to honor the fear, be in the fear, but not spread the fear, heal the fear, work through the fear. Many therapists' office will be full today. And actually, I'm so thrilled that I have therapy this afternoon. and honor the wound and honor the fear, but like I said earlier, do not be the victim, be the lighthouse. So think that through. What does that mean to you? Does that mean that you're going to go and post that nasty joke, or are you going to post a prayer? Are you going to respond with rage, or are you going to find the silver lining? What are the choices that you make? And I always say that it's not that we can't change our experience, but we can change our experience of our experiences. And so we can't change the outcome of this election. It's done. But we can absolutely change the way we experience it. And so if right now the best that you can do is mourn but be inspired to rise up, that's a good way to experience it.
It's a good way to start, yeah. Brilliant, great advice from Gabby right there. Practical advice. I'm reading some of your comments. Linda says, it helps if I realize that I'm in no position to judge. I must honor those folks who voted for Trump because I believe that people do the best they can with what they've got.
Yeah.
I must not feel superior thinking that my way is always right, says Linda.
I love her for that. That's exactly what I'm saying here. It's like if we separate ourselves, then we're just feeding the division. And that's what this whole election has been, a very divisive election. And led by someone who is feeding that messaging. And so let's not feed the fire.
Sandy, we all need to heal now and get our country back on track. And I think that's really important to understand, that even though we feel that there's this division, it's still our country if we see it that way. Is that correct? How do you?
It's tough for me because it's tough when you feel that sense of powerlessness, when you have certain number of people making decisions on your behalf. And we now have a very strong lean in one direction. But nonetheless, we have many activists in this country, and we all in our own ways can be activists today because we are the media, and we have Facebook Live, and we have Twitter, and we have Instagram. And while our vote has made one committed direction, we still can use our voices in different ways. And so it's really about how are we going to create the local movements that we're here to create, and how are we going to show up in the ways that we can still to have an impact. A lot of this also comes down to, like I said earlier, being a spiritual activist. So if you feel that you may not have an effect on policy, you can have an effect energetically.
But we need to keep fighting for what is right. Definitely, there's a lot of people out there feeling like that.
Yeah. Let's get real about that. So I think that some of the things that Trump activated in the country, while they were horrifying, really made us speak up in a greater way. Like, as a woman, I think, any woman, we've got some women in this room, it's like any woman that witnessed that video on the bus, it sent us into a collective rage. And I hope that the outcome of that will make the good men of our country and all the men of our country think a little bit more about what they say and how they joke, or think about how they respond when there's locker room talk, or the women in this country to have the bravery to speak up, like so many of the women who are the victims of his violence did. And so that was something that, while it was so horrifying and wounding, it was also sometimes, I've said this earlier on your show, the wound is the place where the light enters you. So when we feel like we've been punctured in that way, and particularly as women, where sexual violence is such a deep core wound that is so shameful and so silent, that in many ways the chaos through which this came forth activated so much in us. And so I think that was a good thing. So I think that there's a lot to be said for what he's activated in us and how we've come together in that way.
Yeah, and that may take some time to look at, but definitely people are opening up their voices, right?
Yeah.
Like you're saying, these may have been silent people, and a lot of them were. We hadn't heard about them. And that's what I'm really interested in this part, because we always say when things don't go your way, when you fail, when you don't get the result you want, there's something to learn. What do you think we should be learning or thinking about learning, and is there stuff that we can start learning?
Well, I think first and foremost that we must understand through compassion, or we will misunderstand the times. And that's quoting Yogi Bhajan. One of the 5 sutras he left us with is understand with compassion, or you'll misunderstand the times. And actually, he had beautiful sutras. There is a way through every block. Another great one. But I think first, just looking at the compassion piece, is that there's many people in this country who felt like that neither party was honoring their needs, and that what Donald Trump represented to them was a rebellion and a voice for people who felt that they were alienated by elite. And so that separation activated many people in this country, and I want to honor their wound and respect their desire for change. While I don't agree with the change maker they've chosen, I honor their desire for change. So there is
the intention to want change,
and not even just the intention, but that there have been people that have felt left behind, and this was their voice, this was their choice. Again, while I don't agree with the choice, I understand where it came from. So that understanding through compassion is a beautiful lesson in all of this. It's a beautiful opportunity for all of us, and it's a very deep spiritual message to be able to step away from something like this and live in that way. And then the other spiritual opportunity here is to be more committed for what we believe in, whether it be kindness or compassion or a cause that we want to stand for, to deepen that level of commitment and to rise up more.
Definitely. And it seems like a lot of this backlash or a lot of this rebellion comes from our creation of inequality, or our creation of lack of diversity, and our creation of suppression. And then it's almost like it all kind of opens up all at the same time.
Yes.
And I think that just gives us more of an insight into how actually in our own circles, in our own localities, in our own communities, if we're creating communities of compassion, conscious groups of diversity, places where all people are welcome, if we're doing that more now, we're actually setting up ourselves in the future. And what I'm really interested in talking to you about is the future generations.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about children. And yesterday, of course, Van was talking about
how do I tell my
how
children?
do you tell your children? And I'm sure there's lots of people thinking that. I saw some kids crying on the subway on the way to work, and the parents were trying to explain it to them. And I'm not exaggerating at all. I actually saw this. So how would you see, if you're a parent, or I'm sure you've got friends who are parents as well, how are you advising them?
And I'm thinking about family planning. It's like wanting to bring a child into this world is very scary.
Yeah.
I think that with the faults that we find in others, we can have an opportunity to teach forgiveness. And that lesson of forgiveness and compassion is probably the greatest lesson you could teach a child. So right now, this isn't an opportunity to create more separation within the dialogue amongst your children, but use this as an opportunity to teach them compassion, teach them kindness, teach them oneness, and also teach them to practice meditation because they're going to need it.
Yeah.
So I want to laugh when I say it. It's the truth, right?
Yeah.
So conscious parents have to raise conscious children, and we can't we don't want to spew more of that division into our homes. I was texting with my mom, and I heard some of her reactions to this, and even my response to her is, just to be reminded. It's the same response I'm giving myself when I go to that place of how could they, right? But to remind myself of where they were coming from.
Yeah.
So I think that teaching compassion and forgiveness is going to be the way to find the lessons for your child in this.
Are there any things you think people can actually physically start doing? Are there any activities?
Yeah, I think you can begin to, like I said earlier, just think about right now, if you're in your office or you're posting a message, think about how you can today, just for today. Like I like to say, let's keep it in the day, right? There's many days ahead. Cultivate a greater sense of kindness today. So how can you post something, like I said, post something kinder rather than a joke? Or how can you send a message of love and compassion to someone that you know is afraid right now? Or how can you console someone? Or how can you just try to shift your perception a little bit more about the other side, which is what we're seeing here. Is we're seeing that there's a greater understanding now of where this vote came from.
Definitely.
Right, and doing your part there. And then the other part is start to get to that level of commitment and conviction, and not just let this be a 48-hour I'm going to go for it, but what are you going to bring to 2017?
Yeah.
How are you going to show up more? How are you going to start doing that thing that you've been talking about? How are you going to start to speak up in a greater way? Listen, the one thing I will say from this is it has put a lot of fire under my ass. Like, I'm ready to go. I'm going to write this book in a month. I really am. I mean, it's in me, right? And it's a message I got to get out, and maybe even get it out sooner than I thought.
Steve, like any great tragedy, and for many things, this is a tragedy of tragedies, the collective good rise up. To me, the silver lining will be those that can lead with wisdom, and heart will come out from their shadows.
Yeah.
We need them more than ever now.
We really do. Yeah. And also, when I was on the show last, we did a prayer for Donald Trump, right?
Did.
And it was a prayer for Donald to choose to see with more oneness and to release the division. And now that he's got the votes and he's in office, what can we pray for him to do to be more presidential, to lead from a place of an honorable man? And so maybe what we can start to do, rather than sending him all of the negativity that we continue to do, is potentially to see him in the light. That is a very powerful approach. From a spiritual perspective, we would want to invite him in, and we can do this in our meditation today, but invite him into our mind's eye and see him surrounded by light. And I'll lead us in that today.
Definitely.
Because that, more than anything, I mean, this is our leader, and we gotta. It's not like you're giving something up. You're actually gaining so much by practicing that type of forgiveness.
Completely. It's not that we want him to trip up. We don't want him to underperform.
No, we really
because
don't.
all those things will only lead to more negativity in the future. And I think we underestimate how much our feelings towards someone and how much our desire for them to succeed or fail is actually just going to have more and more knock-on effects. So actually wanting him to be more successful, and wanting him to be the good we want him to be, and having that hope, having that prayer, having that light towards him, is hopefully going to work out better for all of us in the long term. And I think that I'm hoping you're connecting with this and resonating with it. And even if you aren't, I promise you that there's truth in it, that wanting him to do badly or wanting him to do worse is only going to make matters worse.
It's only going to make matters worse, And then you're going to just live in rage for 4 years. That's not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Although I don't know how I'm going to get out of that in this moment. In this moment, I'm not sure yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So Gabby's now going to lead us in a guided meditation. Please feel free to guide us for as long as you like, as deep as you like, and whatever you feel inspired to share with us in the meditation.
Beautiful.
And I'll join in as well.
Close your eyes, wherever you are. At your office, at your desk, in your home. Close your eyes. And take a deep breath in and hold that breath. Hold that breath, hold that breath. And then release. On the next inhale, honor all the feelings that are up for you. Breathing into that space in your body where you're feeling rage, anger, hold it and hold it. Anger, frustration, fear, honor that wound. Hold that breath. Be in the presence of that feeling. And on the exhale, let it go. Take another deep breath and let's honor the wound. Breathe into that space, into that discomfort, into that rage, anger, frustration, fear, and honor the wound. And on the exhale, let it go. Continue to breathe long and deep. And as you breathe, deepen the feeling of the pain, the sadness, the loss. Just allow yourself to be in the presence of the discomfort. Breathing it in and letting it go. Breathe in. Breathe out. Continue that cycle of breath as we cultivate a collective prayer for Donald Trump. We call on the guidance of the highest truth and compassion. We call on the voice of our inner wisdom, our highest self, a higher power of our own understanding to enter into our consciousness now. We trust and we know that if we don't like our leader, we can learn to be led from the voice of our inner wisdom. We can trust and we can know that if we want to transform our experience, we can shift our perception. Breathing in and releasing, continuing to honor the discomfort within you. Let's invite into our mind's eye an image of Donald Trump. And let whatever comes up come up for you, breathing it in, and on the exhale, letting it go. A few more times, feeling the feeling of rage, anger, frustration, sadness, let it come through. If you need to cry, you cry. And on the exhale, let it go. And take another deep breath in and feel that wound and release. We call on the experience of our highest self to come forward. And as we breathe in, we want to breathe in an image of golden light coming into our heart. Breathe it in. And on the exhale, extend that light from your heart to his heart. Breathing in, you cultivate even more light in your heart. And on the exhale, you extend that light from your heart to his heart. Take an even bigger, deeper breath in, breathing that light into your heart. And you begin to see this light enveloping your body, taking over your physical presence. And on the exhale, send that light from your heart to his heart. As you extend that light, you see that light pouring over his body, and his physical frame begins to disappear, as does yours. You breathe in that light, and it begins to take over your entire physical frame. And now you are just a great ray of light. And on the exhale, you extend that light back to Donald Trump, and you see him as a great ray of light. Continue the cycle of breath, and light begins to expand beyond you, beyond the room. On the exhale, it expands beyond him, beyond the room. Right now, there's no you, there's no him, there's no division, there's no separation, there's no hierarchy, there's no president, there's no separation, there's no division. Right now, all there is light. Breathing in that feeling of light, that presence of light, and sending it across the room. With each inhale and with each exhale, you expand this light throughout this space, throughout your consciousness, throughout the world that you perceive. And you can trust and you can know that this practice is, on a very, very subtle level, having a massive impact on the world. One more deep breath in and release. Using the mantra today, I forgive you and I release you. I forgive you and I release you. And I choose to see you in light. When you're ready, open your eyes to the room.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think they were wonderful affirmations and moments in that where we could really look beyond our divisions, look beyond our challenges. I hope that felt useful for you. I'm not saying, and I know Gabby's not saying this either, that just washes everything away. And
no, it's a
moves away,
practice,
but it's
right?
a practice,
I think that you can repeat this video over and over. You can, cut that meditation audio, and whatever it is, you can memorize that messaging of just simply breathing in the light and extending the light. And this is one of the greatest forgiveness meditations for someone who you have anger or hatred towards, which is that you can remember that in those great rays of light, we are one. And sometimes that's not something that we can get on a conscious, logical level. It's a subconscious memory of who we really are.
Use this as a space all day where you can connect with like-minded people, where you can all share how you really feel, but see it in a positive space, see it through a spiritual lens. I mean, Gabby, that's part of, that is what you do. You're always trying to help people rise spiritually, see things spiritually. We said today it's a practice.
Yeah.
This is something that we feel that is going to take time to heal. When you've seen people having to overcome personal forgiveness struggles, and this is almost more strange, right? Because like you said when you woke up this morning, you felt like something had been done to you.
Yes, very personal.
And it's funny because most of us have not met the person, most of us have not met the people, and so I'm just intrigued by how forgiveness works in that space, and if you had any light to share with us on that.
Yeah. I mean, well, we have resentment because we're so obsessed with the you of who we think we are, right? The me, and being the victim. And one of the pathways to forgiveness is to remember that we're all in it together. One of the pathways to forgive, either side, right? One of the pathways to forgiveness is remembering that oneness. And so that first step is to choose to not be the victim, and choose to not be the victim of the world you see, and choose to not be so hung up in the story of me, right? But instead be part of the story of we, and what can we do, and how can we show up. But yeah, I think that many of us feel very personal attacks because there was so much targeting in so many different directions, right? So that's going to take a minute, and forgiveness is a process. It's not like it just comes over you. It may be that you, in the next 4 years, carry that resentment, but you have a fleeting moment of forgiveness on your meditation pillow. It's not about the length of time or the consistency of the forgiveness and the healing. It's about your willingness to get there. And so that's really all I'm going to ask you to show up for. It's just to have the willingness to forgive, because they often say that, carrying a resentment is like drinking poison. It's like taking a bat and hitting yourself over the head with it. So do we want to be poisoned for the next 4 years, or do we want to be free? And having the willingness to forgive is having the willingness to be free.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, that I was reading about how negativity and fear affect the brain. Oh, yeah. And it's such an interesting area and space of how it works, because our neural pathways are just closed down. We get narrower and narrower in a thought process, and all of a sudden we're down this well of negativity and fear where it feels like there's no way out. And I'm really interested in, and I'm not saying I have a solution or an answer, because we'll see how things move forward, but I think it will be very natural for some of our mind to constantly now focus on everything he gets wrong or anything negative that comes out, which is only going to build an even more vicious cycle. And I would really encourage you all, and I'd love to hear Gabby's thoughts, that when your mind does that, almost remind yourself, re-listen to this, because that's not doing you any good.
Yes.
And I think that's what we need to connect with, that if you're not, you can do good, but you're not doing yourself any good if you're focusing on everything that he's going to get wrong, or any judgments, or any mistakes, or any supposed mistakes that the media amplifies about
Right, right. And our energy goes where our intention flows. So whatever we're putting our attention towards, energy is just going to keep at that, just like what you said with, the single point of focus. So it's a lot of work to turn the ship, but I'll come back with you whenever you want, and I love you.
Definitely.
I will work with you
Me
however
too,
we
Gabby,
can to continue this dialogue. And keep tuning in here, because this is a place where you are being the lighthouse, where you're showing up and reminding people of the light within them. So this show in itself is an anchor, and I'm happy for you all that you have it, and I'm proud of you for doing it. So I think that there are solutions out there. There are books. This may awaken you to your spiritual path, which I hear it all the time on my book tour and throughout the world, where people would say to me, my diagnosis cracked me open to my spiritual path, or my divorce cracked me open to my spiritual path, or the losing my job cracked me open. And Donald Trump becoming the president of the United States now, if that doesn't crack you open, I don't know what will.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I couldn't agree more. And it's amazing, because last time you were here, you were talking about your book, The Universe Has Your Back, which is a New York Times bestseller now. So congratulations to you. It's an amazing achievement. It's a beautiful book. I read it in a weekend before I interviewed Gabby, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I wanted to ask you this, and we were speaking a bit about it earlier. It's like, how do you in these situations still connect? Because that title means so much to me. I totally agree with it.
You got to stand behind your titles. How do you know the universe has your back when Donald Trump becomes president? So, you know what? The book is actually, the subtitle of the book is Transform Fear to Faith. And so this is just, much of what I speak about throughout the book is that obstacles are opportunities for spiritual growth, or that we can always look to seek spiritual assignments in all the discomfort that we have. So what I mean when I say the universe has your back is that I mean that when you get grounded in a sense of faith, that you can trust and know with certainty that you are being guided no matter what. And that is a level of conviction that comes, that is a promise from living a spiritual life. I can say that it's a promise. So this situation, while it may not feel like the universe has my back when something like this happens, ultimately, really what it is it's an opportunity to deepen your faith. And in that process of deepening your faith, you get into the know, that no matter what. It's easy to think that the universe has your back when Obama's president, right? For us, not for the rest of the country, right? But when these things come up, it's an opportunity to deepen your faith. And so any type of spiritual book right now would be a great thing to pick up, to just get more grounded in what that faith process is. And that book is all about how do we strengthen our faith and how do we transform our fear into faith.
That's probably one of my favorite things you've said today, is that, you look at people who have started their spiritual journey, started being lights, and it always comes from something that started off which they saw as not being the most beneficial for them, or wasn't the most positive experience for them. And so this is actually a call out to everyone, and say, whether you're on it, if you are already on your spiritual journey, this is a catalyst.
This is your bottom.
Acceleration.
Congratulations.
Right? This is a great place to start. And if you haven't started yet, these are the perfect moments when you look to something higher, when you look to something
Absolutely, more than ever.
Yeah.
Like I said, it is so easy to just numb out when we're in cruise control and we trust the guy that's got the office. But once that uncertainty settles in, it challenges us to strengthen our faith, and that's the blessing here.
Completely true. Thank you so much. I'm going to read a few more of your comments. Vani says, this conversation letting us see something undesirable from a different perspective. Thank you all, spreading the positivity. Joanne says, I can't thank you enough for sharing your healing wisdom. Thank you so much. Erwin, I woke up sad and upset, but I'm going to put my best foot forward for this country as an immigrant, trying to live the American dream.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping me move forward in this difficult moment. Wonderful. It's so great to see all your positive energy coming this way. Remember, the more you be the light as well, the more you'll feel it and experience it in your own day. So definitely look that. Connect people to this feed if you think it's the best way for them to deal with this today. I'm sure more people will be writing about it, reading about it, messaging about it as the day goes on. But Gabby, are there any final thoughts or calls that you want to leave?
Jay, you said it. You just said it. Be the light. That's the call to action here. Be the light. In all the areas of your life where you want to fall apart, remember that message is be the light. And the more that we light up our own life, the more we light up the world. And I mean that.